أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رضي الله تعالى عنه وعن كافة المؤمنين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Allah Ta'ala mentions the nature of this world that we live in, just full of turmoil, full of challenges, full of obstacles, full of good and bad. And I thought I'd reflect on this particular verse, which is in Surah Al-Hadid, the chapter entitled Iron in the Quran, and mention a part of the verse and then a particular statement, a narration, hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam for us to think about and to take with us. And so Allah Ta'ala, He says about the world, Sta'idhu billah, i'lamu, keep in mind, know, i'lamu, أنما الحياة الدنيا, that the life of this world, لعب, is a game, ولهو, and is a distraction, وزينة, and also an attraction, وتفاخر بينكم, and it's a means and a source of boasting and pride and competition amongst you. وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد, and it's also a means of amassing and gathering and collecting more wealth, more children, more offspring, more progeny. This discourse about the world, this explanation about the world, is very important for us in Ramadan and outside of Ramadan, because it goes to the very nature of consumption and a particular lifestyle, and how engaging and indulging in that particular lifestyle has harmful and deleterious effects for us as believers trying to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he begins by giving us an analysis of this world. At first, it's a game, meaning the desire for leisure, the desire for fun, the desire for play that exists. That's part of the nature and the makeup of this world. La'ibun, it's a game. And after that, once we get involved with the game, slahun, we become distracted. So we get pulled into the game. We get consumed by the game. We are obsessed with the game, being just another piece in the game, competing with other players of the game. And once we're pulled in at that level, and we've become a piece, and we become pawns, we become pulled into the game, then it becomes difficult to come out, because the more we play, the more entangled we get. And that's why it's a zina. It's an attraction. So first it's a game, and then by playing the game in according to the rules of the game and forgetting the rules of Allah Ta'ala, we become victimized by the lahun aspect of the world, by the distraction. It distracts us from working towards the akhirah, and that's why Allah Ta'ala mentions in the Quran, Alhaakum takathur, that amassing and gathering the world and aspects of the world and amassing material possessions distracts you. And you stay distracted حتى زرتم المقابر, until You have an encounter with death, whether that's visiting the graveyard or not. And so we get distracted by the game. Wazinatun. And then there are attractions that are there that keep us entangled, keep us in a state of forgetfulness and heedlessness, and blindness. And that keeps us caught up in the game, distracted and attracted to the game, and we lose sight of what's most important. وَتَفَاخُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ. And then when we win, when we gain, when we earn, when we collect, when we amass, we boast, we brag. That fills our nafs and our spirit. Look at what I did. Look at what I have. Whether it's external or internal. The first person to say ana was Iblis. So it's boasting. Source of pride, kibr and ujub, and I have this, so I'm better than you. And because we like that boasting, it makes us feel special and great, protected, safe, secure. We want more. وَتَكَاثُرٌ. And we enter into this vicious cycle. Now, the whole discourse here and the point here is the fact that we perform actions, we work, we strive, and we work so hard for this life that we tend to forget that we need to work just as hard, if not harder, for the next. I want to share with you a profound hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is an authentic Sahih hadith recorded in the collection in the Sunan of Imam al-Tirmidhi in the chapter of the Bab of Fitan, where Amran ibn Hasin radiyallahu ta'ala narrates that the Prophet ﷺ talked about how serious this trap would be for his ummah. And he sallallahu alayhi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Fi hadhihi al-ummah," in this time, meaning the time after him, and he says in this ummah, but he's talking about after his time, not just for Muslims, but for non-Muslims as well, for the community of people to come after, the generations of people to come after him. Fi hadhihi al-ummah, in this nation in the latter times, there'll be three things that emerge. خصف ومسخ وقذف إذا ظهرت القيان والمعازف وشربت الخمور. When three things will happen at the end of time as a result of people getting caught up in this phenomenon, this game, and being entangled. Three things will emerge from it, and as a result of that, three more things will occur. There'll be three consequences that emerge. The first, he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the presence of entertainment. إذا ظهرت القيان, يعني the presence of entertainment. Qiyan is literally when somebody sings live. It's a live performance. There's someone who sings live in front of an audience. When that becomes a phenomenon, live performances become commonplace. So that's one thing. Wal ma'azif, and then musical instruments begin to emerge and accompany that. So now what starts off as a form of entertainment that is consumed visually by seeing someone. Now you've got a form of entertainment that is not just visual, but it's also auditory as well because of the musical aspect. So now it's not just the eyes that are pulled into the game, but the ears as well. And now you can see this is becoming a larger sensorial or sensory experience. وَشُرِبَتِ الْخُمُورِ. And when intoxicants, not just khamar, yes, wine and alcohol, but when intoxicants are consumed. And that has to do with the taste and the ingestion of other substances that are intoxicating into the body. When these three things become prevalent, become dominant, when entertainment is pursued at the visual level with the eyes, the auditory level with the ears, and with the mouth itself by ingesting and consuming, drinking khamar, and taking in other substances that are intoxicants that cloud the mind. So the point of the khamar is that it goes in through one sense, but it affects another one. When these three things happen, when communities are engulfed in these forms of entertainment and they're sucked in, they're pulled in, and this becomes the norm for the Muslims. This becomes the norm for the ummah, for the community. When this happens, when we become pulled into the game at this level, three other things will happen. And those three things he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the first is khasfun, from the word we get in Arabic khusuf, which means an eclipse. And so an eclipse is when the moon passes in front of the sun and blocks the light. So the meaning is that the nur and the light, the spiritual light that's contained in us, becomes eclipsed. As a result of that, the progress that we do in the masjid or services we do for Allah, the moment that we go and we become engaged in the world and in the game of the world, and we plug in at the visual level, we plug in at the auditory level, we plug in at the oral level, and we consume the world, and then we become consumed as a result of that. At that moment, the nur, the light, the spiritual flame that has been kindled inside of us through acts of worship, through acts of charity, through acts of devotion, that becomes subject to extinction. That becomes eclipsed. Those actions, that consumption is counter to furthering and kindling the nur. Right? And so it's like you light a fire and you put it out. Khasf also means that another meaning of this part of the hadith is that people will leave places and villages that are known to be places of good akhlaq, good character, good moral values. They'll leave and these places will become emptied. Right? So the places that used to be associated with simple people, good people, and they used to be people of nur, people of light, trustworthy people, all of a sudden those places will be empty because those people will be gone. Those people will be gone. And those individuals who were lights and symbols of hope and symbols of morality and ethics and spirituality, those people will be gone. And as a result of that, the character and the behavior of people will be eclipsed as well. And so there'll be a prevalence of people whose character and behavior is that they're untrustworthy. Communities that used to be in villages and towns that used to be associated with enlightenment and blessings will all of a sudden be populated with other kinds of riffraff. And so what used to be lights and beautiful places all of a sudden will be places of darkness. Khasfun. And that people will also look to places of false light in their desire to search for real light. And so they'll give credence and they'll give trust to people who claim to be worthy of trust, and they won't be worthy of trust because of that desire to latch on to anything that looks like light. That's khasfun. As a result of that consumption, we become desperate. So that's the first consequence. The second consequence is meskhun, he said. So mesk means transformations. So khasf is eclipse, and then the second one is mesk, which means transformations. So the moment we become pulled in and sucked into the game of the world and the attractions of the world and the distractions of the world, and we become pawns of the world, we become transformed by the world. And that transformation that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is talking about, that mesk, is a transformation in character. It's a transformation in character, in behavior, in actions. Person used to do this and all of a sudden they start doing that. And that behavioral transformation that occurs because that person is doing certain things that attach them too much to the world and distract them from what they should be doing in terms of cultivating a proper relationship with Allah Ta'ala, that behavioral transformation leads to intellectual transformation. And so the person internally, psychologically, and spiritually and intellectually, they begin to change their thoughts, their understandings, their cognition, their perception, their understanding of Allah in the world, and they start to have doubts. They start to become unsure. What was certain before all of a sudden becomes shaky ground. And because of those transformations in belief, the absence of certainty in Allah, the absence of certainty about the afterlife, the absence of certainty about consequences in actions, that weak foundation then causes certain people to act on that and further behavioral change. And so the person begins to act in certain ways that start to distance themselves from the deen. That's the meaning in the Quran in Surah Mutaffifin, where Allah Ta'ala, He says, كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. So we put this rana, this coating, this black veil, this covering on the hearts because of what they used to do, not because Allah Ta'ala is a malicious God, but because people's actions have consequences. Just like in the legal sense, people's actions have consequences in the abstract sense, in the spiritual sense. And so belief is also an action. What you believe about Allah, that's also an action. It's an action of the mind, an action of the consciousness. And so the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is talking about mesk, that what will happen is people's actions will cause transformations in them. But these transformations will be external. First you'll start to see people that act different. And then internal. They'll process different. They'll think different. They'll start to doubt. Children will start to be different children. Anybody who has kids and grandkids today, you know for sure kids of this generation are not like kids in our generation and our grandparents' generation, etc. Transformations. The mindset is different. The child is different. In some kids, the wiring is different. Meskhun, transformations. And then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the third thing, وَقَذِفٌ. Qadhif. Qadhif, as you know, means slander. So slander will become prolific. As a result of our lax attitude in terms of what we consume, so we become flexible about what we put in our mouths, we become flexible about what we consume, what goes in, and so that leads to a certain laxness about what comes out. And so we become people that are more prone to slander because we let our guard down regarding what comes in. Ibn Khaldun in his Muqaddimah, he says, the way you know, in summary, the way that you can tell that a city or civilization is headed towards ruin, the way you can tell that they're ready to be attacked, that a city is ready to be attacked, is you look at the lifestyle of the people. He said the more activities of leisure that they indulge in, the more society indulges in leisure, the more comfortable they get. The more comfortable they get, the less prone they are to keeping their guard up. And he says, now the problem with this, he says, Ibn Khaldun, he says, now what's profound is that this is the case at the level of defense of a city. It's also the case with the human being's spirit. That the more leisurely and comfortable you get about what you consume and what you take in and what you look at and what you eat and what you buy, the more flexible you become at that level, the more you let your guard down and the more you become prone to acts of vice and to error. And so the Prophet ﷺ says that the more you, when you indulge in these things, when you play the game, qadhfun becomes rampant. When you become a blind consumer, so you'll let out anything. You'll slander people, you'll tear up communities, you'll tear up Muslims and non-Muslims. Your tongue will be treacherous. And those conflicts and those arguments, those problems that become interpersonal, become communal problems. And your ability to tear a person down with your tongue at the individual level leads to other people being able to do that. And then that magnifies and multiplies, and what starts as a major sin at the individual level in terms of the tongue casting sin and casting harm, casting fire on other people, leads to nations casting bombs and bullets on other communities and other nations. And so qadhf means first at the individual level we tear people down, and then at the communal and national level we destroy nations and communities. And so the phenomenon of missiles and bombs is only a byproduct of us destroying each other through qadhf, through the tongue as well. One opens the door further to the extent of the other. So qadhf also means for calamities to be dropped down. And so these things become the norm, that it opens the door, this laxness, this flexibility, and this inability to be concerned about what we take in, the ideas we take in, the entertainment that we take in, what we expose ourselves to, just at an indiscriminate level, that leads us to losing our guard and dropping our guard down. And that leads us to indiscriminate acts of destruction towards each other. So if we don't cultivate light in ourselves, then we'll be more prone to destroy the light in other people. And that is the phenomenon في هذه الأمة, he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in this ummah. And so 3 things we have to be very careful of. What we consume with our eyes, and by the way, the eyes, talking about slander and qadhaf, the eyes can slander. وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ. Allah Ta'ala says, Waylun. Wayl is the name of a valley in Jahannam. Waylun likulli humaza. Way, that valley in Jahannam is for every humaza, meaning every person that slanders, that does qadhaf with the eyes. That valley in Jahannam is for that person. Humazat lumaza. Lumaza with the tongue, backbiting. Qadhaf. How do you slander with the eye? You're having conversation with somebody and person walks in and you look at the person you're talking to and you roll your eyes when you see them. Or the ustad, or somebody's giving a lecture and they say something and you look at your friend and you roll your eyes and what's this guy talking about? And with the eyes, etc. Qadhaf, slander. Ghiba, yani. Backbiting. You've assaulted, visually assaulted that person, subhanallah. You can assault with the fist, you can assault with the tongue, you can assault with the eyes. When you assault with the eyes, and you can do that, if you can do that with the eyes and the tongue and the ears, you better believe you can do it in text messages, in Facebook posts, with little symbols and that you type with the colon and the half open parentheses, etc. We can do that. There's slander and qadhaf and ghiba on Facebook posts. How many of us have thought about that? But we are so lax with things. We post anything, photographs of ourselves, comments of people. Then we like it even. We pass it on. Subhanallah. Without thinking, hold on for a second, what does this mean? And because we're consumed by the entertainment. We're consumed by the fact that it's Facebook. Or I want more likes. Or they passed it on to me, so I should pass. I'm just passing it on. At some point we have to think. We cannot be just people that play the game. That's the point. We cannot consume the game. We cannot. We are not here to do that. We are here to be servants of Allah Ta'ala. Remember the Prophet ﷺ, he was sent as a warner and as someone who gave glad tidings as well. And he was sent as a mercy to everyone. As a rahmah to every single thing. And his ummah, you and I, his community, our level is that we are supposed to be witnesses over the words of the other anbiya on the Day of Judgment. So our witnessing to the truth of what the prophets have to say on the Day of Judgment requires upright character, upright witnesses. And then the Prophet ﷺ will testify for our truthfulness as well. We are people who exist in the world, but we are of the world, but not for the world. Outwardly we're in the world, inwardly we're with Allah. Outwardly we're with the people, inwardly we're with the maker of the creator of the people. Outwardly we have wealth, money is in our hand, inwardly in our heart, Allah Ta'ala, in the present, the remembrance of Allah Ta'ala. That's our vocation, although we might have a job. We cannot get pulled into the game. This is what Ramadan is about. And what I challenge all of us to think about Ramadan in these terms, especially as we exit Ramadan. We have to look at what we consume, what we take in, not just food and drink. Look at it holistically. What do we watch? What do we read? What do we buy? What do we listen to? What do we hear? What do we take? What do we type? What do we write? All of these things. What comes in collective? We have to discriminate. And the moment we discriminate regarding what goes in, the more we do that, the more we cultivate the nur, the light that is in us, that Allah Ta'ala gives us through the acts of worship, the ibadah we do. Because ibadah is nur, salat is nur, sadaqah is nur. All of these things are nur for us. Wudu is nur, wudu is light. These things ennoble us. They are light for us in times of darkness. We don't want to be people who live and want to be stars but are full of eclipses. We don't want to be like that. So Allah Ta'ala reminds us that this is the game. Don't play this game. It's not who we are. And the Prophet ﷺ talked about consumption. Don't be consumers. Be careful with your leisure. Doesn't mean we can't have fun and we can't have leisure. Be careful. Be careful with the content. Be careful with the amount. Because too much of a good thing is also dangerous. And there's also, remember, there's punishment in the prohibited matters, in the haram matters. There's hisab, questioning and reckoning in the permissible, the lawful, the halal matters. And so, if you know you're going to have to go to court, and you're going to have to be questioned, and or you know you're going to have to be interrogated and questioned for 8 hours, but you know if you don't do something, well, that questioning will only be 1 hour. So you'll not do that action. Many times we do things that lengthen our hisab, our questioning, because we've eaten too much, because we've purchased too much, because we've listened too much, because we've indulged in things that we should not have indulged in. Right? We didn't turn away. We didn't say enough. We didn't give. Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, to conclude, he said, one of the best things to do in restricting yourself and protecting yourself is looking at the things that you own, what you have. And whatever you have, you take sort of an inventory of that, and you look at what you don't need. Whatever doesn't benefit you, your family, or your guests. If it doesn't benefit you, your family, or your guests, you get rid of it. Why? Because if you don't, there's questioning. Allah Ta'ala will question you about it. Why is it there? What did you do with it? What was its purpose? So make it work for you. Get rid of it. But you don't trash it, because that would be israf, waste. You give it in sadaqah. Make it work for you. If it's sitting on the shelf, it's taking no, you're not getting any sadaqah for that. You're not getting any hasanat for that. So give it away in sadaqah. And that person who takes it, they use it, they benefit from it, you get all of the sadaqah jariyah for that. And so you start to take an inventory of the things you don't need in your home. Doesn't benefit you or your family or your guests. And you clean out your closets. Right, slowly but surely. Reduce the amount of hisab for yourself. Then after you've done that reduction, then the second step is a little harder. Be mindful of your consumption. Don't buy things you don't need to put back in your house and create more problems. Be restrictive and wise about what you consume and how much, portions, content, everything. And this kind of lifestyle is more befitting for the worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is more productive for one that wants to cultivate that nur, that wants to cultivate their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for the one who protests, right, internally protests playing the game, playing the rules of the game, being pulled into the game. That is not who we are. That is not what this month is teaching us to be about, and that is certainly not what we want for ourselves or our family and our loved ones in this life, nor the consequences of that in the next life. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I was informed that we should give some time to questions, inshallah ta'ala, questions and answers. So, inshallah, that's just some words that we wanted to share and reflect on, inshallah ta'ala. If you have any questions, please, inshallah ta'ala, ask away. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Naam, yes. Assalamu alaikum. In the back, the sister, yes. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Naam. Your question is about if you wear clothes on Friday, if you get something and you wear it on Friday, that there's no questioning about that? Hmm. As far as I know, that's one of the old wives' tales of Muslims. Yeah. ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ. Allah Ta'ala says, on that day, you will be asked about all na'im, all forms of comfort, all forms of comfort and delight, things that you love, things that you're comfortable with. They asked Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala about the meaning of that of na'im. Allah Ta'ala says on that day, on the day of judgment, when you see Jahim, when you're in the presence of the hellfire and you know questioning's about to start and you're thinking about all the bad things you did and then Allah Ta'ala starts the questioning about the comforts. Right? They said, Ya Ibn Abbas, what is na'im? What are the comforts that Allah Ta'ala will ask you about? Ask us. He said it's cold water. Meaning things like cold water. Makes you think twice when you drink. Yani, all of us know the barakah and the beauty of cold water. Right? We don't have to be in the desert or in the Hijaz or in Hadramaut to understand that. So when you drink cold water, in the commercials, you open what is it, the commercials, the guy's thirsty or the woman's thirsty, and he opens the thing, and you hear, and the person drinks, gulp, 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 and after that, that moment is na'im. That's comfort. That's a ni'mah. There's questioning about that. Did you say Bismillah when you started? When you finish and you said, was the first thing to come to your mind? Or was Alhamdulillah? Right? Right? Yani, when you look at art, are you so captivated by the art that you completely have no awareness of the artist? That's the nature of the game. It pulls you into the art. Now, there's a way you can look at the art and reach perception and understanding of the artist. I'm speaking metaphorically about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah ta'ala talks about, haven't you seen this in the world? Haven't you seen the Ibil and how it's created? And the Jibal, the mountains, and how they're created? And haven't you seen the sky and how it's created? And haven't you looked at this and looked at that? Look at that. The art, meaning the makhluqat, the creation of the world. So you look at the world, and through the lens of the world, you can perceive the artist. But these are not. But the problem is when we have the wrong kind of relationship with the world. When our relationship with that glass of water or of the garment is it pulls us in, it consumes us, and we forget the one that gave us blessings through that. So there's hisab for everything, even a sip of water, let alone a brand new garment. Absolutely. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, our mother, whenever she used to receive a gift, she would keep it for a while, and then she would pass it on. That was her habit. She never, when she died, she never had all the gifts people gave her, radiallahu ta'ala anha, she never had them. She never kept them in her permanent possession. She would keep it, radiallahu ta'ala anha, and then after a while she would give it away. Because she knew there was questioning about it. And she wanted to make those things work for her. If they're in your possession, how many things in your closet Let's say you have 4 shirts. Think about it. If you ever think about this for a second, let's say you have 4 shirts hanging up in your closet. Okay? On a given week, when you put on that shirt or any of those shirts, does it work for you? Do you get barakah for that? Well, if you just put on the shirt just to put on the shirt, absolutely not. But you put on the shirt and your niyyah, remember, innamal a'malu bin niyyat, all actions are by intentions. So if your intention to put on the shirt is to look good, because you bought it, because it matches, because it's the only thing that's ironed, that's the extent of your, you get that reward. But now what if you put on the shirt or the abaya and your niyyah, your intention is to cover your awrah? Ah, that's different. That is putting on a shirt. You see, there's putting on the shirt and then putting on a shirt. The entire time you have on that shirt with that niyyah and you say Bismillah when you put it on, you take hasanat for that. Now you have that shirt on for 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours. Hasanat. Why? Because your awrah is covered. As opposed to just putting on a shirt because it matches. Because it looks good. Or you want to look good. You see? There's hisab for that. Having a shirt is halal. You have to cover your awrah anyway. But why you put it on is important. Allah Ta'ala will ask you about that shirt. And then the shirt in your closet you don't need, that you absolutely don't take hasanat for that. Give it to somebody who needs to cover their awrah. And when you give it to them, you give it to them not because you don't need it. You give it to them because it's the right thing to do. You want to take hasanat. You want them to cover their awrah with the right intention you give. Then that shirt that was just hanging in your closet is working for you. Now, yes. Yes, you must accept the gift. Remember the Prophet ﷺ, he always accepted gifts. As our teacher, rahimahullah, Sheikh Amin used to say, he said the way of the believer is 3 things. 1, if you ask of Allah. 1, and we know the hadith on that. You ask of Allah. So he would say, when it comes to people, don't beg. Don't ask. Ask Allah, meaning ask Him first, then you talk to people. Then, when things come to you, la narud, don't reject it. Take it. When gifts come, you accept it. That's the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Then, when that gift or that item comes to you that you didn't reject, it's a gift, you have it, la nahbas, don't hoard it. That's the thing. You share it. So even the Prophet ﷺ, when he had gifts, people would send food and things that he would share. Right? He would share. So this is the adab of the mu'min, the believer. Is that we accept gifts and we never refuse gifts. But we don't perceive that gift is exclusively ours in that sense. Okay? And the best thing is to make that gift work so it benefits you or your family or your guests, or in the spirit of our mother Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, you pass it on. Not to immediately, you don't give, take the gift and as soon as the guy walks, give it away. So like, I don't need it. No. You keep it, and you benefit from it so the other person gets ajr, because, you love for your brother what you love for yourself, you love for your sister what you love for yourself. So you want that person take ajr, you use it, you benefit from it, alhamdulillah, and you share it with others. You share it. And that way you take hasanat. Yeah. Good deeds. Yes, brother. Assalamu alaikum. Darura, the question the brother asked, what's the best way to differentiate between a darura and a hajj? A darura is an absolute necessity, and a haja is a need. The defining line is that darura is something that without it, the entity cannot exist. For example, there's a darura of human beings to have, for example, food, access to food, sufficient water, things of that nature. That's darura. For sick patients that require life-saving medicine, that darura is the life-saving medicine. Haja, on the other hand, is different. Haja is when let me answer it a different way, if you will. By removing a durura or by fulfilling the dururiyat, you are allowing that thing to exist. If you don't fulfill the dururiyat, the thing perishes. The thing dies. It ceases to exist. You with me so far? Whereas if you remove the hajiyat or the haja, the thing can exist, but it exists with hardship. So let me put it to you like this. If you had to eat potatoes for the rest of your life, nothing but potatoes, could you live? Yes. Why? Because eating is a durura. If you don't eat, you don't live. Does that make sense? Now, you're eating potatoes for 20 years. Would you be depressed a little bit? Okay. Now, having rice, potatoes, bread, steak is a haja. It's not necessary for your life. Each one of those individually is not a darura. But the diversification, but the absence of them makes life hard, makes eating hard. You with me? The presence of them reduces that hardship. Okay? So a haja is something that when it's present, a hardship is removed. A hardship is removed. Now, I'm not saying an inconvenience. Okay? Working in English terms has its limitations. But a hardship is removed. And then, of course, there's tahsiniyat. Tahsiniyat is amenities. That's a different thing. I don't want to go into that because you didn't ask me about it. But that's the difference. Daruriyat is, life, oxygen, proper sunlight, things of that nature, heat in the winter, cool, access to air conditioning or being cool in the summer. Without those things, life does not subsist. Okay? Yeah. No, absolutely not. Credit cards are not a dururiyat. No. Credit cards are maybe considered for some people haja. For other people could be tahsiniyat. Yani. But certainly not a durura. There's no way that if you don't have a credit card, you drop dead. Regardless of what people's shopping habits are. But, same thing with money. Money is not a darura either. It's not. Certainly not credit cards. Certainly not checks. Certainly not loans. Without a doubt, no. No. Not on its own, absolutely not. In my view, no, not at all. Daruriyat has to do with a basic need that is, here's the word, essential. That is essential. Well, no, that's a different explanation now. That's when we talk about the social level and things of that nature. It's a little bit different. I'm talking about at the individual level, at the basic level. Dururiyat is essential. It's an essential need, whereas hajiyat is a need based that is there. That if it's not removed, there's a hardship that's there. Okay. Now let's say something. Let's look at it in terms of a different circumstance. Living in Valley Ranch without a car. Okay, and living without a car, not having a car in Valley Ranch. Okay, now not having a car has nothing to do with your survival in terms of life or death. Well, it could. It depends on how you look at it, right? But if you don't have a car, you won't drop dead, right? But it makes you may have to walk. You may have to catch the bus. Okay, You may have to walk. You have to change your job, get a job that's right, work at the grocery store, or work at the Kroger's or something of that nature. Okay, so having a car is in reality not a darura. Okay, now if there's no access to transportation, and between you and your job or whatever is too far to walk or something, then in that case you could look at it as a darura. Okay, so there is a certain level of relativity here. But what I've explained is a very general paradigm. And on a case by case scenario, there would be exceptions and a different way to look at it. Inshallah. Wallahu a'lam. Yeah. Yes. 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 Now. Now. Mm-hmm. It affects. Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh. Yes. Salam. Beautiful question. I don't know if we have the time for it, but profound question. Um, let's say I'll try to sum it up quickly. Let's say a 5-year-old takes a black permanent marker and just starts writing on the wall here. Okay? How do you clean it? How do you clean it? Well, right, right. Huh? Repaint. Okay. Now you could repaint, but if you want to, I don't want to repaint it. I want to remove it because repainting it doesn't remove it, right? You pretend like it's not there. But people that come in will notice that this part has been repainted, right? Even the white paint you use might be a little bit different. So you want to remove it. You see where I'm going with this. So how do you remove it at the physical level? You need what? You got to scrub it. You got to scrub. That's where you get out your brush and the soap and water or whatever, and you start to scrub. And you scrub that marker off. We do this with our shoes. We clean our shoes. We clean our cars. We don't repaint our cars, right? We don't paint our shoes. We clean stuff. When our clothes get dirty, we clean it, right? Even if the washing machine does it, there's friction there. There's scrubbing there. Because the idea is not to put on something clean over something dirty. Even if you have brand new clothes, you don't usually just put on brand new clothes. You might take a shower and then put on brand new clothes, right? So you always want to clean first the spot. And that's actually a requirement that you clean first, even at the level of tawheed. That's why we say la ilah. We clean ourselves from all other ilah. Right? We do cleaning at the theological level. The idols have to go. And then we adorn and beautify ourselves. Illallah. So, in a nutshell, when we've been affected negatively, we commit sins, we commit errors, violations, we've got to clean. And the way the Prophet ﷺ taught us to clean is tawbah. Tubu ilallahi tawbatan nasuha. Allah Ta'ala says. Sincere repentance. What is it that does the cleaning? The Prophet ﷺ informed us, an-nadmu tawbah, nadam, regret, remorse. Remorse that brings us to sadness. We cry. We make sajda, we make istighfar, we ask Allah for forgiveness, we cry. That feeling of remorse, that brokenness, that's the scrubbing in a metaphorical sense. And so when we recognize that error, we repent, we have regret, sincerity, we make our raka'at, our sajda, our dua, our istighfar, astaghfirullah al-azim wa utubu ilayhi ya Rabb, etc. We cry. We've scrubbed. The spot is gone. The blackness is removed. I'm talking metaphor, right? So now you've removed the black. Now you paint over it because it's gone. So now you paint over it. And so how do you paint over it? The Prophet ﷺ said that when one of you commits an act, a bad act, بحسنات, follow it up with a good deed. So do a hasanat. Follow it up with a good deed. As soon as you finish that tawbah, go do something good. Do sadaqah. Smile. When you smile at the believer, at people, we should be people of smiling. Sadaqah, that's charity. Those things bring Allah Ta'ala's love. It's a form of painting over. It's a form of lighting up. Nafila, Quran, dua, a good word to a person, helping somebody cross the street, removing pollution and litter from the roads. Doing those acts, doing acts of righteousness, is adorning and decorating and painting ourselves and our spirits. Now, it's not just about doing, and I'll end here. It's not just about doing those acts, but we've got to do those acts for the right reason. We've got to do them because Allah Ta'ala loves it. That's called ikhlas, to please Him. That's the only reason why we do it. We do it because He loves it, not because she loves it, or they love it, or we love it, or somebody else loves it, or because we get a plaque for it, or because we get recognition for it, or because somebody likes us on Facebook for it. It's because Allah Ta'ala loves. That's called ikhlas. So when we paint over our, meaning when we adorn ourselves, when we replace that black spot with a beautiful spot, we replace it by doing an act that the Prophet ﷺ taught us to do, and doing it in the way that he taught us to do it. Ikhlas and amal salih, righteous deeds, sadaqah. That's, in a nutshell, an answer to your question, inshallah. Naam. Yes. Yes. No, that's a yeah, because yeah, I think I've thought about this. Like, Hajj is a need. I think Hajj is a need. Daruriyat is not a need. It's essentially necessary. Essentially has to do with essence. That which has to do with the internal ontological being of something. Does that make sense? Okay. You look at the question of the brother is, how do you know that the standard of living that you have is really according to your means and you're not wasting, going into excess or going beyond your limit? The way you do that is you look at other people who are in your same socioeconomic bracket and you compare yourself with them. And you look at the moderation in that. So for example, if you're a physician and you're a neurosurgeon, right? And you look at the lifestyle, if you will, of other physicians and neurosurgeons that live in the same area of you as you and their lifestyle. Let's say, it's commonplace for somebody at that lifestyle in that community in that situation. Let's say to have 2 cars. So if you have 5 cars, you're in excess, for example. Let's say it's commonplace for a social worker that's in a community who knows other social workers, and you have the same salary and the same similar lifestyle, similar standards of living, and it's commonplace for them to have 1 car, and you want to have 2.5 or 3 cars, for example. That's living in excess. So you look at the people in your same area, in your same socioeconomic status, in your same profession, okay, and no, but this is the same person in your area. They wouldn't be extravagant for them. Yeah, there will be excesses, and there'll be what's above the medium and below the medium, and then there'll be the medium area. So what you want to look at is that medium, that middle range, not the person who's on either end. You want to look at the entire spectrum, and then you'll see somebody who's above and below, and then the median. So you stay in the median, and that's how you know. That's how you know. Last question. Or I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me get the child. I didn't know you had a question. Yes. Uh-huh. Now. Yes. Hmm. Anytime you're in a good question is anytime you're in the presence of something, you watch something or you listen to something or you hear something, and it's haram or you shouldn't do it. So if you see something, you have to lower your gaze. You cover your eyes. The ears are a little bit different because it's tough to, even if you cover your ears. But the better thing is if you're with people that are doing something bad or talking about or speaking in a bad way, that you try to remove yourself from that. Or at the you try to speak up and say, change the subject. Let's not talk about this. Let's talk about that. If it's an appropriate movie, no. Then if it's appropriate, there's nothing problematic about it. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Allahu alam. So let me end now, and then if there's anything, inshallah ta'ala, we can speak, inshallah, as we're leaving. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم واهدنا إلى طريق الحق والطريق المستقيم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته وإياكم